Are they able to answer questions and so on? So this is where I try to assess by supervising the teaching practice. And also, their laboratory work, I observe them doing experiments in the classroom, but I also have them in my own laboratories every Wednesday afternoon for their own practical sessions. So, generally speaking, what I'm doing there is I'm trying to show you constructive alignment. Now, Bologna does not expect you to do this level of detail, but it's something that you need to do for yourself. When you have written the learning outcomes, check how it coordinates with teaching learning activities and how we're going to assess it. Now, this is a question people often ask me. Does every learning outcome have to be assessed? Now, in theory, of course, it should be. But of course, in practice, it can be difficult, especially if all you are using is a terminal examination. In 3 hours, you cannot assess 10 weeks of work. But by varying the assessment, you can in fact make sure that each learning outcome is assessed. For some professions, all learning outcomes have to be assessed. You know, medicine is an obvious example. Things like pilot training, that the pilot is terrific training. He knows how to take off the aircraft, perfect. But he doesn't know how to land it. That's the problem. Okay, so clearly, in training a pilot, you have to assess all of the learning outcomes. Now, when you set up a qualifications framework in Lithuania, you certainly will be mapping the modules onto that qualifications framework. So I won't mention that in any much detail, but the program learning outcomes that you have for your degree will map on to the national framework, and also the module program learning outcomes will map on to the program learning outcomes. That's just something to be able. And then within each module, we need alignment, constructive alignment between the 3. Now, when you're describing a module at university, this is the system we use. So before a student starts the course, they know they're going to be on this course for the next 4 or 5 years. They have to get detailed information about every module. Now, detailed information involves ECTS credits, periods, number of students. Do they have to do other modules before they're allowed to take that home? Do they have to do other modules with how many lectures and tutorials will they get? Who is in charge? You know, who will be teaching the module? So that's all the sort of information. You know, the list of learning outcomes, you know, how it's going to be assessed, and so on. So the Bologna process requires all the information to be very transparent, and rightly so. I mean, the students are our customers, and we have the right to make sure that we give them as good an education as we can, and they have the right to ensure that they receive the best possible education. So we need to have everything written down and upfront for them. You have modularization in this university already, haven't you? Do you use the word module? A module is like a short course. Yeah, so you know the advantages of the modularized system. So I won't go into that, but 60 ECTS credits divided up into various modules. And there are many advantages to it, but we need to worry about those advantages here. I put that in because when I was preparing this lesson, this lecture, I wasn't sure if you had modularization or not. But there are great advantages to it. In our university in Cork, a 5-credit module generally involves about 24 hours of lecture and That's attending lectures, studying the material in lectures, sitting for examinations and so on. The total work over there comes to 125 to 150 hours of lectures. So that's our 5-credit module to take into account all of the various workload involved for the student. Now, as I say, the only reason I'm here today is because the road that you were about to go down on in writing learning outcomes and in showing constructive alignment, we started going down that road in 2005. So it was only 9 years ago, but at least by going down the road, we are able to share our experiences with you. And it was the quality promotion unit in our university that drove belonging, not only just in our university, but in the whole of Ireland. So we have all various universities, and we set up a team. And some of the best teachers on that team came from people like you who came to our workshops, who saw the advantages of the belonging process, and who also liked the idea of learning outcomes. They saw that learning outcomes would make them better teachers, and so they joined our team. Our team initially was 3 people: myself, Norma Ryan, and Professor Orla Hyland. There was only 3 of us. But as we went through the training process, people like yourself came to our first training seminar, and they became our trainers. So one of our top trainers was our Professor of Pediatrics, Professor Tony Ryan, and he took on the job of training the whole medical faculty. So your job from the medical faculty, you will be training all your professors. And what faculty are you from?
Faculty of Arts.
Fantastic. And that will be your job. We'll be training in the Faculty of Arts. So it is much easier for each of you to train your colleagues rather than have somebody from outside training. And if you could translate these slides into your own language, it would make it very easy for you to carry out the training. So what was great too is that we ran international conferences. Because by bringing in international speakers on learning outcomes, people soon realized this was not a question of just our university embracing learning outcomes. The whole world was embracing learning outcomes. And we were all going down this road together. And out of all of the work, we had a very visionary rector in our university. Wonderful man. He was an engineer, a great businessman, very rich man too, because he set up his private companies. But he was very interested in teaching and learning. And he set up in 2006 the Teaching and Learning Centre, which in the Gaelic language Unadbara, the place of St. Finbar, who was the saint who had a monastery on the site of the university where teaching first began. And he took a top person, Dr. Mary McCarthy, from Education Department, and he put her in charge. So the Teaching and Learning Centre had 2 people, one full-time and one part-time. And their job was to organise staff training. Initially, the staff training was concentrated purely on learning outcomes and assessment in order to make us compliant with the belonging process. I know you have to go to meetings, so that's no problem. So, initially, all of the staff training was about belonging. And those were some of the sorts of things that we looked at in the belonging training courses. But now, if you were to look at the program that they're putting on, You might find this week there might be a lunchtime session dealing with the use of ICT in teaching and learning. And next week there might be a lecture in the area of how to assess a portfolio. Or then you might have somebody coming from the law faculty talking about the use of projects in teaching the law. So all different things. So every week there's something on. Now, the Quality Promotion Unit had a very clever idea. Firstly, they said they would run all these training sessions during lunchtime, sometime between 12 and 2, whenever people for lunch. And they sent out an email, come to the training session, and while you are being trained, we will provide you with lunch. So they would come in, and there would be the sandwiches and coffee, and they'd take their sandwiches and coffee, and while they were munching their sandwiches and coffee, we were teaching them about the belonging process. So everybody had to go somewhere for lunch, and so by spending a bit of money, it was wonderful to have them there at lunchtime. So lunchtime sessions are the key for getting the staff on board. Out of our Bologna process, an amazing thing happened. Many of our professors said to us, you know, when we join these seminars, we have never received any training in teaching. Could the university give us allowance for coming to all these seminars? And so it was set up a postgraduate certificate in teaching and learning. This is a formal qualification. And in our university, you will not be promoted unless you can show that you are a good teacher and provide evidence through a portfolio and through student questionnaires. So teaching and learning was put on the map by this rector. He brought in that book. So to be promoted, you must show that you were a good researcher, but you must also show that you were a good teacher. And this was a great help to people to bring their teaching up to standard and show them how to gather evidence that they're making a good effort at their teaching by putting together a portfolio, and this is the evidence of all the hard work that I'm putting in to my teaching. So we're the postgraduate certificate diploma, and it went on then. So that's year 1. Year 2 then was the diploma year, and year this then, if they want to stay on for a 3rd year, they can do a master's in teaching and learning. Now, not everyone does a master's because it's a fair amount of work on top of your own workload, but people were particularly interested in it. So, for example, our professor of chemical engineering did his master's thesis with me, a brilliant thesis. And he looked at the effectiveness of introducing learning outcomes into the faculty of engineering. And he issued questionnaires to students and to the staff and so on. And I'll show you a piece of paper that he published in a moment. Now, how did we do it in Cork? We used the bottom-up approach because we already had these courses running. And all we said to our professors was, we want you to do one thing for us. We want you to write the learning outcomes for each module that you're teaching. That's all we want you to do. Not every professor will come like you are. You are motivated to learn about them. But for those who were not motivated and who did not send in the learning outcomes, our Director of Quality Promotion sent them all a copy of the book. Everything is in this book that you need to write the learning outcomes. I give you 1 month So pressure was put on, and the pressure came from the top down, from the rector. Because it's very important in our university that we have international status, is we attract students then into us. So we have many, many overseas students who come in to our university. So the first thing, this was our stage where we were at before we moved along. Our courses were there, and they were written in terms of usually objectives. So this is what we asked the staff. So if you go to someone and say, look, all I'm asking you is to write a maximum of 8 learning outcomes to tell me what your students are capable of doing when they finish this course with you. Now, people at university are very intelligent people, so that's not asking them a lot. So, 90% of people did the job for us. They wrote the learning outcomes. The people who refused to do it, who said, oh, I'm very happy, I'm not doing this, then the rector said, that's fine, I will close down your course. You cannot operate without the learning outcomes. Now, but the 90% of people who did it had no problems. Okay? Right, what was next then? The next thing then that we did in our training courses is we said, okay, we thank you very much for writing the learning outcomes. Can you now yourself have a look at your teaching and your assessment to see how these learning outcomes are being achieved? So there was the teaching, and then they looked at the assessment. And sometimes our professors looked at it and said, no, I think I will change the assessment. I like the idea of asking our students to give a presentation to the rest of the students. So they went through there, and then, as we went on with our training courses, we asked them to check for the constructive alignment, to link up the learning outcomes, the teaching and learning activities, and the assessment, just like I did there in the team. And sometimes our professors said, no, I want to make changes. And so it went around in a circle. So it was no big deal to implement Velan. It doesn't involve a huge amount of work. And it does do 2 important things for us. Number one, it makes us think about our teaching. It forces us to write down the learning outcomes. And number 2, it makes us think about our assessment. Are there better ways we can assess our students? Now, if you are putting in a new program into the university, now you have to adopt a top-down approach. The first thing you need to put on the form is list what are the program learning outcomes. In other words, if somebody does this new degree that you're doing, so you're an engineer, do you have mechanical engineering here?
Yes.
Do you have chemical engineering? Electronic? Civil? Do you have mining?
No.
Great, okay. So supposing you say in the morning, I want to start up a degree in mining engineering. The first thing you would have to put down are the program learning outcomes. A student, at the end of this degree, you will be able to. Okay. And then the program learning outcomes come down. Okay. Discuss the best location, design mines and safe with health and safety regulations and so on. So you would first have to write out the program learning outcomes. Then you would have to design modules for each of those. So you have 60 ECTS each year, you have 4 years. How is it going to be divided? Okay. Then you assign ECTS credits, not terribly hard. Okay. Then you see how we're going to teach it. You might have to bring students to another country to visit a mine, for example. You know, that sort of thing, to give them practice in it. And then construct the learning and go back again. So the top-down approach is for new degrees, but the bottom-up approach is for existing degrees. Now, since you already have many courses here in the university, you would probably implement the bottom-up approach. So the writing learning outcomes, therefore, takes time. It's not something you do today and then forget about it and carry on as normal. You revisit it maybe every year, every few years, to see where you need to make changes. So what's looking to the future? Down the road here in the University of Maribor, in this beautiful town, in these magnificent buildings, you are going to bring this university into the modern era of Bologna. Other countries have already gone down the road. In Scotland, for example, they implemented the Bologna process very successfully. And Judith Vincent there describes how it enhanced coherence. In other words, it made it clearer to the students and to all the stakeholders what the system was all about. It provided students with an opportunity to manage their own learning through learning outcomes by being clear from the word go on what was required. In the Union of Students in Scotland, they wrote a very interesting report